Welcome, everyone. This is an unofficial chat with Logan from Sowing Prosperity. I know you just had your first trip to El Salvador. I've been there 4 times, and I just came back, I think it was 2.5 weeks ago or something, from a 10-day trip. And both of us ran into Jack Cruz relatively recently. And based on what I've seen on your channel, he changed your life and your family's life just like mine. And kind of my plan was just to dig into that a little bit.
I love it. I love it. I love what you're doing too. I don't think there's enough of us kind of talking about these things, right? It's like I just got done writing, 2 posts, pretty adamant about pushing back on the narrative that is destroying, I think, our health. And right, and so like cancer is my primary focus. That's my world. And so like every single day I wake up and it's a new cancer diagnosis. Somebody's died. Somebody's having complications. It's just like it is every single day. And so when you have society as a whole believes a specific narrative and it's wrong, it makes us feel like the crazy people. And so when we were talking, I think before you hit record, on our little one. So I have 4 kids, and my youngest, she has the most fair complexion too. And so I was tracking you on that. And you would think, oh, get a sunburn so bad. Oh, she's fair skinned. Oh, she can't be in the sun, and all these things. And so, when I first interviewed Dr. Cruz, he, first of all, it's like drinking out of a water hose, or fire hydrant when you're dealing with Dr. Cruz. But he said, keep your son off of screens. So for anybody that doesn't know, my son was diagnosed stage 4 cancer when he was 5. He's 12 and doing great now, but keep him off of screens and get a tan on his back. And I was like, dude, what does this have to do with anything, right? Because I'd gone through the diet and all the alternative cancer things. And so that societal norm and then Dr. Cruz's approach kind of comes together with a bang, to say the least. But the long story short, he absolutely changed my life. And understanding what he meant by that is the whole reason that, I ended up in El Salvador too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really interesting because you came at it from the food based on when I was snooping at your older videos, and I did as well. I was raised a strict vegetarian, and I got off of that by looking into Weston A. Price's work and was, really big on that. And I had just started a business as a nutritionist. I was writing a cookbook when I ran into Dr. Cruz for the first time. And my daughter was an insomniac, the older one. So for the first 5 years of her life, that was how I latched on to that idea, because she didn't sleep for more than an hour and a half to 2 at a time. And she would have night terrors. And I was an insomniac too.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then I had the little one, and I was still nursing. She was really young when I first saw that first podcast with him. And I was like, man, I tried all the food stuff, the homeopathy, the herbs, you name it, to get her to sleep. I don't have anything to lose. I just want to sleep.
anything to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the solar callus with the young kids, the first time I took the little one there, she got a heat rash, or sun rash, as they call it, the bumps and everything. And she was really mad. And I did not put any sunscreen on her. I put coconut oil on her, and I had this a wintergreen essential based cream that really reduced the swelling and everything. And that's her weakness. She has less weaknesses than my older one. But now it's been since that first trip in November, she's actually tan.
Yeah.
She's actually almost as tan as my older one is now.
Yeah.
So it took her some time, but she got there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the other thing about the the topics that we discuss is like it takes time. Like time isn't an extremely important variable, and like so we didn't get to the state we were in like a weekend, right? Or a week trip to the beach is like not going to fix everything that we're dealing with. It's like a lifetime accumulation to where we are, and so I think it's every N of one is that, right? It is an N of one, and so we all have a different makeup with what we've been through and have weaknesses and strengths, and so it's I keep thinking back to these posts this morning. It's like I get, crucified if I say the sun doesn't cause cancer or you need to get a tan, right? And like that people come out of the woodwork just to freak out. It's kind of like the raw milk thing too. And it just doesn't make any sense when you look at it. So like I use the chart of melanoma per 100,000, right? And Washington and Vermont are the highest. Now how does that make any sense if it was the sun that's causing melanoma? Right? Like it just objectively makes none. And so when you start breaking down the facts about it, it gets pretty wild. And so again, that your son needs to get a tan on his back. Trying to understand the biophysical roles of melanin is extremely important, and that makes perfect sense. And so, like, our babies having a tan, we're not saying go out there and make a barbecue of your child, but getting a tan is extremely important for them to be able to function properly.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. I did an in-person workshop and I was talking about basically happiness and how the sun lends to your happiness
Absolutely.
and how that works in the brain. And I remember at the end for questions, the one lady's like, "So what part of the sun is good, to prevent skin cancer from the sun?" And I go, "There's no such thing as skin cancer from the sun." And you hear the whole room go,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's interesting because I don't know if I'm a reader and I'm a speed reader. So when I went to look at all the sun causes skin cancer studies, what I did is I looked at the references. So pretty much every single study will say the same thing. It will say it's established and we know that UVR, ultraviolet radiation, causes skin cancer. And they don't actually explain how they know this. There's no quantifiable proof. And there's two studies, very, very old ones, that are linked every single time. They're both Petri dish studies. One of them is with a mercury arc lamp on cultured foreskin cells, of all things.
Hmm.
And the other one is on another type of cultured cell with a fluorescent ultraviolet light, neither of which resemble the sun. And the third study that I think you'll get a kick out of, which is that popular one from Northern Europe, like the Scandinavian one, showing that the high incidence of skin cancer in Swedes and connecting that to the sun. They actually say in the paper, there's no other possible reason for this that could happen. Two, they make the assumption that every single person went on a tropical vacation every year. They don't even poll and ask. Three, there's a sentence in there that says, it's the only possible reason because there's no way that fluorescent lights can cause skin cancer. I kid you not, the sentence is in the paper.
It just makes no. It's psychotic. It really is. The entire thing is just psychotic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really got a kick out of that one. I was like, oh, maybe fluorescent light does contribute.
Maybe we should reconsider what we believe. I think that's the other thing about science that I have been fascinated with, and like this is real science, is that it is an approximation of the truth based on the information we have now. Right, like that is what it is, and so like is what we understand now the same as it was 100 years ago? No, 200? No, 500? Right, and so like it is based on what we understand. Like quantum biology is like 100 years old, but we don't understand it. Right, like anybody that thinks that they understand quantum electrodynamics is lying. And so like we don't even have a basis understanding of a lot of these things that we're dogmatic about.
Yeah, we make assumptions. So I'm curious to hear, like, after that first podcast that I saw of you and Dr. Cruz, where, you were saying, like, it's the first time you're digging into his work. What was the arc in implementing all the things that he was talking about?
Well, one, I own a grocery store, and so like the food thing is front and center, right? Like every single day. That is, it's a farmer's market, and so like I really had a hard time believing food was fifth or sixth on the list, as Dr. Cruz says. Um, so that was kind of that was a hard one to implement right out of the gate, but then I was actually pretty excited about some of the things that I accidentally did right. So, he hammered me pretty good on Dave Asprey and the red light therapy. But one thing that I did with Lander was, so in a lot of cancer protocols, you have a prophylactic antibiotic. So you have Bactrim that you take on the weekends typically. And so, like, I think this is pretty insidious now that I think back to it. But Bactrim has a photosensitivity with it. So they say, take this in the weekend and hide from the sun. That's the standard pediatric oncology protocol, right? That's insane. But I didn't do that. Never gave him the Bactrim ever. And he always was outside. We were playing. I was like, the last thing in the world I want to do is for my child to think he's sick. I want him to be a little boy and have fun. Let's go play. Let's make memories. Let's run around. And so he was always outside. And so I feel like that was an accidental get right. And so that was pretty cool. I began cutting back on supplements pretty early on, trying to understand there are half-truths everywhere, and without a framework and the ability to discern and understand first principles, it's easy to fall for the wrong ones, right? And so I was big into obviously diet. Walter Longo has a bunch of great information when we're looking at fasting and ketosis, and there's a lot of good things in there, right? St. Clair's done so much work with NAD, and so like there are truths in that, right? But then we get confused. So for lack of a more straightforward answer, the thing that I started to apply from Dr. Cruz was to consider the information I'm getting through a more deconstructive, try to break down what's the truth and what is not, and understand why. So that's what it wasn't just a straight, hey, he said this is the recipe, do the recipe. Like I needed to understand the recipe. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And because in that, you had said that your son was already in remission. What had helped with that? Do you believe it was, changing the food? Like, what do you think was the biggest trigger to getting him there?
Yeah, food was huge. I still think like this is the other thing on the food is like food does matter. Like it does. But what food matters is different than what all of the diet dogma is. All right. So food, in my framework, food should be local, seasonal, and natural. That is how we should eat, right? And so whatever that means for someone in Canada, someone in Arkansas, someone in El Salvador, it looks different depending on when, where you are. And so that was the big breakthrough. The ketosis absolutely has a role, especially in like cancer, right? But not for the same reasons that it's being relayed. And so, for example, I did keto with Lander. We started out very vegetarian because I believed the basis of the China study. And that's Esselstyn and Campbell. I don't now. But when you understand the biophysics of what food are, is they are, I mean, they're electromagnets. It's an electromagnetic barcode read by the mitochondria. So when we create chaos by having the improper input, that's a big deal. So the reason that food, and I accidentally kind of got this stuff because I own a grocery store, right? Like, so I accidentally got so many of these things right because we would only eat from my market, which is sourcing local primarily. So the aspect of food having a correlation to when and where we are accidentally happened, but I think it's one of the most important things that anybody facing some sort of a metabolic issue can apply. And honestly, it all goes back down to deuterium regulation. Like that's why food matters. It's like the environment we are dictates how we can best handle the deuterium regulation, which also, that leads us into magnetism, which is a huge, deep conversation that's a little more hard to grasp. But Faith was huge. I can't, as you know, as a very flawed, terrible Christian, I am a Christian, and I think that we turn away or towards, God and our beliefs in those situations, and I just turned straight to God, and I said the doctors are going to do their part, God's going to do His, and I'm going to do mine, and so that this is what sowing prosperity is I'm trying to understand what my part is and how to apply it, have faith that the doctors are going to do the best that they can. So he did have treatment, had chemo, radiation, surgery. We did all those things. There's, I mean, I think it actually ties to the water, but there's a lot of stuff. It's like, I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but like forgiveness is huge. Like when I went into that cancer diagnosis, I had so much hatred and bitterness and anger, and that baby and what he went through completely changed my life. And I do think that the environment that our kids are based on of how us parents are affects them tremendously. And so like that was a mirror moment for me to, get my crap together, forgive, let go of all the petty nonsense of the past that doesn't matter, doesn't it's not constructive, and release that and forgive to be forgiven. And I think that actually connects to the whole water piece of, quantum biology. But anyways, I really think that that was kind of the biggest foundations that we made, and then just constant refining.
Yeah. And I'm guessing based on the little that I did see, that because you felt so much better with the food, that's the reason why it was so hard to be like, is it really number 5 or 6? But to your point, have you read his book, The Epi
Oh yeah,
Paleo RX?
absolutely. It's on
Okay.
Audible,
So
and I go through it
he
quarterly. Yeah.
says in there's actually a quote I think I have where he's like, food is that important in gene regulation. Like he gives a percentage point. Something crazy, 70, 80, I don't remember. I this is of course my theory, is I think that when you position food and put it in a podcast as important, then people no longer pay attention to the other stuff.
Yes.
Whereas, nobody says you should eat a banana in Canada or Arkansas. Like, I don't think bananas grow there either,
No.
right? So those are all going to matter. It's just that if you do, and I've seen this personally for myself really, really strongly, is that I can eat perfectly because I have before and still feel like
Yeah.
garbage. And I can get away with murder on food. But if I'm in El Salvador, I can get away with chocolate croissants and sugar and this and that and still feel really good, look good, feel better, get rid of any lingering
Yeah.
issues. So it
I, that's the
it
other
makes
thing
sense to
about
me.
like this entire conversation is like, to his point, I get it. Because food on one hand is super easy, when you have, that certain guidelines, but then it is down lower on the list based on that experience, because that experience is not unique to you. That experience is exactly what every single person that I know that's been there, El Salvador specifically, has said. Exactly. Right. And so, we we had a blast in El Salvador. I ate so many pupusas. I drank coconut drinks. Like, we had a blast, right? I didn't gain weight. Billy actually lost weight. I think William actually lost weight too. And so, like, how much does food, rank? And I think, again, so I try to get people down there. I should just get off the
Yeah.
plane, go stand on the beach, and just see how you feel. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and as far as from a Canadian perspective, as far as vacations go, it's one of the cheapest places to be. When you calculate it all with the cost of food, with the cost of an Airbnb, if you're splitting it with somebody or you're renting a room, and all of that, all in, it's actually a really good deal. If, for us, we can't just go down to Florida. That's with the exchange rate and all of that, it's more expensive than going to El Salvador.
Yeah.
But it's a really good choice. So I'm really curious because every time now I have a long list of health issues that I have, dealt with and improved radically. So when I go to El Salvador, the crazy things that happen to me are very significant. What about you? Did you notice any crazy stuff in the 7 days?
Yeah, sleep was huge and dreaming. Like that, it blew my mind. I dreamed every night that I was there. I slept pretty good. I don't dream here in Arkansas hardly
Mm.
at all. And so the only times, and I am not advocating for any of this, just prefacing, I've done a lot of experimenting. The only times I had a comparable experience with the dreaming was when I was playing around with high dose copper and high dose melatonin. That's the only other times that I had a boost in dreaming, and so that was that was huge. I drink about 2 pots of coffee a day here in Arkansas. I worked EMS for years and 24-hour shifts and blah blah blah. And so like I have just been accustomed to drinking a ton of coffee. Down there, maybe a cup. And the one day that we hung out with Dr. Cruz, I didn't have my first cup until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was fine. So that was pretty eye opening.
Anything else different? Did you notice a difference in your teeth, your sweat?
No, no, and the only reason that I don't think I did is because we were on the go so much and we had way too much like windshield time because we covered about 60-70% of the country. It was crazy in a very short amount of time
Wow.
because we were up north of Metapan, we're Costa del Sol, El Zonte. Like we were in this triangle of all over the place. We ended up in Guatemala at one point on accident. So yeah, what did you notice?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I didn't have to brush my teeth. I know this sounds absolutely horrendous, but my teeth were clean and my breath didn't smell
Yeah,
no matter what I did, even if I didn't brush my teeth. My sweat at first went from like normal to insanely stinky. And then after the first few days, I don't smell at all. Like I don't need to wear salt,
yeah,
deodorant,
yeah,
nothing. I'm just like, no smell. And my hair always grows like crazy when I'm over there. Your skin looks different. Energy changes for
yeah,
me a lot. That's because here where I live right now, my energy levels are quite low, but over there it's like way higher.
right.
And brain function. The speed at which I can read the blogs
Yeah,
and remember everything like increases by like 3 times, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Well,
And sweat.
it all goes back to, the magnetism piece. And so everything functions
Yeah.
properly. You got minerals within the teeth, the exhaust there, the sweating, of course, you detox better. And this is why, I was with Dr. Cruz for about an hour, just he and I driving down from his house down to Costa del Sol. And like, I was able to have some really interesting conversations, but like he knows a lot more than he's even laid out in the blogs and stuff, right? Like and that's pretty evident. And there's a couple pieces in there with the magnetism that he's not laid out yet. And so like I'm not going to, spoiler, just follow Dr. Cruz, but it's a big deal. And so like the way that we are able to function on every metabolic process is magnetism dependent, the efficiency of it. And so like every pathway that you have a problem with is going to improve when you're in a better magnetic environment. So I'm not surprised that you experienced any of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I have been to other places. I've been to Cuba, I've been to Dominican. None of those things ever happened, even though I did nothing on
Yeah.
those trips either other than lie on the beach.
Yeah.
I got a tan, whatever. It never happened, and I firmly believe that the magnetism piece, especially, like, I had a few issues related to sexual function since I went on the pill.
Yeah.
And it was my first trip to El Salvador that got rid of that after, like, that was how many years ago
Yeah.
where I'd done, including all the Jack Cruz stuff, including all the other stuff that people had told me to do, naturopaths, functional medicine docs. And it was the magnetism for 7 days that permanently turned that
Yeah.
around, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really powerful. And I don't think people understand how powerful it is. Have you been approached by people on your channel who've been to El Salvador and who didn't feel that great when they were there? No.
No, I've not had one one experience like that. One thing, kind of, I do want to hit like an elephant in the room. When you go down there, you are going to see a lot of people that aren't healthy, right? And so, like, one of the big preemptive arguments that I'm trying to address here is that you can still be in the perfect environment and destroy yourself. You can sabotage yourself, right? And so, like, I even met a family that lost the dad to cancer, right? And so it turns out the environment. I'm not going to bash a specific environment. The environment that they were in was pretty poor for El Salvador. They were in an electric vehicle business. And so you can have these inputs and not correct them negatively, right? And like a lot of people, you'll see them, they live off of packaged foods, right? Like, so like there's some sort of Fanta drink collection down there that I think that's what they drink instead of water. It's the Takis and the bagged foods, right? Like, so they'll be sitting there having all of this fruit on the side of the road that they're selling, but they're on their phone, they're drinking, a soft drink, and they're eating out of a bag, right? Like, so we can still have a disconnect within what we do and participate. I know that may sound a little bit of, uh, hypocritical with what we've said about you can get away with eating anything, but like if you don't participate in like the actual environment, you can still sabotage yourself. So
It's the sun fear is alive and well in El
yes,
Salvador. Like the lifeguards wearing long sleeves. Everybody around tends to wear pants, long sleeves. They're very modest. Whatever it is that happened since the Mayans, right? They've become this, like almost, like when I compare the native people to the settlers, the settlers with their bonnets and their long and trying to stay white and all these things.
yeah,
That's the El Salvadorians in many scenarios there. So
yeah,
it's not like they're actually benefit. Eating shoes. I was hard pressed to find somebody barefoot even when they were
yeah,
working at the beach.
yeah,
So it's very much something that needs to shift,
right,
and they're not taking advantage of it. And as is very common in third world countries, dirty electricity, having poorly mitigated electric fields. Like here in Canada, and I don't know if it's the same in the US, but we have the reverse. We have electric fields in houses that are amazingly mitigated, like the best meters will hardly pick up anything, and high magnetic fields, right? Because they always happen together. Whereas in El Salvador, what I saw, anyways, with the house testing that I was exposed to, which wasn't a huge amount, it was the opposite. Magnetic fields were zero, and electric fields were through the roof that needed to be mitigated.
yeah,
Like in some scenarios, they were so high, like, in my mom's house, for example, she can't sleep with the air conditioning on. All the breakers there have to be off, and she runs it in air conditioning in the other room because she would have to spend a bunch of money probably ripping out the wall
yeah,
and encasing the wires with something different
yeah,
because the electric fields are so high.
yeah,
Um, and people always on their phones. Like now, I will say though, because a lot of people are like, well, "Look, there's a tower there. There's a tower there," in El Salvador. I don't know what the towers are like in Arkansas, but in Canada, they're monoliths. They're like bigger than my room here. I
right,
know you can't see how
yeah,
big, but it's pretty big.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
huge, and they're much smaller.
yeah. Yeah, and everything that we did, I had access to was basically 3G or LTE, I believe, on the phone. Yeah, I just think that it's important to realize that we can sabotage ourselves, even in paradise. So that's
Yeah.
there's a negative connotation with a lot of the darker skinned ethnicities because it's more the darker you are, the more associated with like labor or agriculture or farming, like with so like they have a stigma against you don't want to get tan because it makes you look like you're at a lower class, and so I think it's really sad. But I got a couple friends from China. They have the same thing in
Yeah.
their families, and it turns into a sun fear thing eventually. But I think a lot of it starts with just hey, it's a societal thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's been bred into them. And I'm sure just like anything, it can be bred out. And there's also, I'm sure, other things that you notice, like they burn garbage, there's garbage around.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this even amongst the people who are, let's say, in our sphere, I think that most people forget that if they want something, they must do it.
Yeah.
So if you go somewhere and you see garbage around and you don't like that, well, don't be like, government, why aren't you cleaning up?
Right.
How about you organize
Right.
a beach cleanup,
Yeah.
couple bags of garbage,
Right.
and you're golden?
I'm glad you kind of went there. So this is what I think, and I'm gonna probably offend a lot of people here, and I don't care. So I think when what we're seeing is an influx of expats that are trying to take advantage of investment opportunity and not integrate into a beautiful society and culture and try to colonize. And I think that's really what we're doing again. And I think that's sad. And I think that anybody that's listening to here wanting to do that, I think that we integrate. I don't think that you try to tell El Salvadorians they're doing wrong and they need to do this and we know better and all that. I think we integrate. I think there's so much that it's a mutual way. And so, I mean, it's my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong, but we're going to end up causing the population to hate us because we go in and we make it unaffordable for the majority instead of going in and how do we, all tides or all tide raises all ships and help build out that middle class, because that's what El Salvador needs, in my opinion, is how do we create an infrastructure, a lifestyle that builds out El Salvador's middle class and makes it where it's attainable. So like I I don't know, maybe I take offense to everybody that's trying to go in and buy land and the skyrocketing prices that go in there and building houses and just building retreats to make people come spend money, and it takes advantage of El Salvador. Like, I just don't like it. And I'm going to be pretty vocal about that because I don't think El Salvador deserves that. In long term, it's going to be better for us when we're all in this together. Because I will be in El Salvador too. Like, I love the country, everything about it. And so I just think we need to be very careful about knowing better and going into fixing something else.
Yeah, get the locals involved, like garbage cleanup, rally up the neighborhood, learn Spanish. Like, I think
Yep.
that language is a big one. Make it a priority. Like, I know I'm actively attempting to become fluent in
Yeah.
Spanish. It's important, and respect too. And especially when it comes to introducing these circadian concepts to locals. I like, and this is my personal attitude towards this, I like the idea of bringing in the indigenous Salvadorians' original attitude towards sun, right? Like, what do the Mayans do?
Right.
Like, how did they bask in the sun? Like, bringing that into the concept so that way it feels like it's their own instead of some, like you said, settling us and
Yeah.
telling us how to change. And you have to appreciate the aspects of a country like that. Like, I've heard people complain about the fact that you can't flush toilet paper and be like, it's easy, just do it. And I'm like, maybe we shouldn't be flushing toilet paper. Maybe they got something going for them there.
Yeah. We went
It's
down for an
compostable.
agricultural, excursion too. That's what Billy and Williams, their world is permaculture and homesteading. And so, um, there's a massive difference. And so, like, I also saw a disconnect with what Americans or expats are trying to force on the environment that does not match. It is not going to work. It's going to be a catastrophe, and how it plays out. And so just instead of learning why do they do certain things, like you bring up the Mayas, why was corn and beans the primary source of sustenance for them? Well, but, it goes back to what we said earlier, local, seasonal, natural. What works here, right? This is why we have, CAM, C3, C4 photosynthesis. These are extremely important concepts to realize that environment's going to dictate. And so when we take an American, a Texan attitude, and we're going to go down there and just force agriculture to fit a certain narrative, that's going to be a disaster. And so this is actually tied to the toilet paper thing, I promise. The decomposition cycles is extremely different there, right? So a septic system is going to have a different input these are the things that you need to see, that it has a different biological cycle because of the environment it's in. And so it's so important to learn first. Like Stephen Covey is it was actually one of my favorite authors, and it's seek first to understand before being understood. And I'm like, well, yeah.
Mm.
So seek first to understand El Salvador before you try to go in there and change it.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit more because I'm not into I mean, I should say I don't know anything about, regenerative farming or anything like that. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by how they do things differently in that sense and how
Absolutely.
things are different there?
So here in the United States, well, globally, really, there is a resurgence in what we're calling regenerative agriculture, and that is an attempt to regenerate instead of the monoculture, commercialized way that destroys the environment. It's like, how do we work with and regenerate the environment? Well, that is only that's very localized too, right? Like what the environment will tolerate and do. So for the United States, we have the Great Plains, and historically, this was these massive herds of bison that just migrated up and down, and they moved and they compacted and they ate and they were being chased by wolves and they had other predators that keep them moving and bunched up together. And then you have elk and deer and other ruminants, right? This is a four-chambered animal that eats grass and browses. Um, and so that environment was conducive to these large herds. So if you think to like a African documentary where you say wildebeest and buffalo and zebra, and they're all moving, right? This is what the Great Plains looked like. El Salvador has a completely different environment. So when you start looking at what are the large animals there, uh, to my knowledge, the largest thing that was there is going to be like a tapir, and then you have some white-tailed deer, and that is the extent of the large animals there. Everything else is going to be lots of birds. You have the coate, you have a little capybara-looking rodent that runs around, uh, some lizards, but the environment is completely different because of how the plants are there, right? And that's kind of a huge topic. So, in order to integrate these, permaculture has certain principles that basically how do you work with the environment to do what you do, and that's what dictates things. So, like what Billy and William do, they're going to be able to have a phenomenal plan that integrates everything that we're talking about, the best of all sides, and learn. I think they're going to be able to learn a lot from the locals there first and apply it on what's going to work and what's not going to work. The point is, when we plant a corn or a wheat or a soy where bison and deep rooted native grasses were, we change the ecology completely, right? And so this regenerative is a beautiful thing. I think it's also been, greenwashed and bastardized, but it is a much better approach than the utilization of all the sides, right? And side meaning kill. So pesticides, herbicides, and this is glyphosate, this is dicamba, this is all the other things that we get into. When we try to conquer, right, an environment and make it do what we want, that is the downstream effects. It's going to be a disaster. And so, like, we can do that with animals as much as we can do that with chemicals. And so, trying to put an improper input to a system, you have a cascade. One more example, I think that's extremely important. The Yellowstone beavers and aspect, right? So, like, the rivers were changed with beavers. The rivers of Yellowstone were changed by introducing wolves. Okay, and so what happened was the wolves then began being predators, doing their thing on elk and deer, and this meant that they weren't able to overgraze and overbrowse. Well, when that happened, now we had more material for beavers, so the beaver population changed. Well, more beavers, more dams. This is altering the water cycle of the Yellowstone. So by introducing wolves, this apex predator that was appropriate for that environment, they changed the rivers. Now that is how a system is supposed to be coupled in order to run properly. But when you take out things, uh, or try to force things, you throw it off. This is why Australia with foxes and cats and toads and rabbits are wreaking havoc. Like when you put in an improper uh, input of any sort into the system that's not made for it, it's going to be a catastrophe. So like we just got to be careful.
Do you think that El Salvador is more meant for like goats and sheep versus beef? given
Oh,
what
yeah,
you
absolutely. Yeah,
explained.
not even a remote question of that. Now, goats can be a problem, right? Like we can cause desertification with overgrazing, right? It's just like the elk in Yellowstone. If they are not used properly, they have to be moving. If they sit in one spot and they just strip it, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. And so this is where like rotational grazing comes in. So like you can use livestock to make it better, or you can use livestock to make it a lot worse. And so I think sheep are probably the best fit. I think
Mm.
hogs could be a great fit there. I think there's some things that can do, but you can also overdo it, right? This is an oscillation. There's a
Are there native hogs there or no?
no, there may be some like peccary style. This is like a in like the Southwest we have javelina, so they look they're very,
Yeah, I
very
know what
different,
it is.
right? Like very woolly, little small, and that's the other things. Like there's no large things down there. You have jaguars that go through, and tapirs can get big, but like you don't have these massive animals down there. You just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting. I like that idea though. I mean, sheep, you know, taste great.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
yeah.
Get a bunch of sheep in there. Yeah,
Sheep could
because
be a
all the
beautiful.
beef is from Nicaragua or Costa Rica,
Right,
right?
right.
Oh, so you're you run a farmer's market. This is a question for you. Did you taste the beef there?
Hmm.
Does it taste like it's drunk on sunshine? Because I can't eat beef in Canada anymore because it tastes so different.
It is different, right? Like,
It is different.
yeah, it kind of goes back into the whole
What do
thing.
you
I,
Well, yeah, I'd love to get into that because I think it's in your field of expertise, and I'm curious because here in Canada we have like grass fed beef, and I have like a farmer near me who raises those, I don't know the breed, but they're curly haired, very small cows. They're like 200 pounds max. I think she said maybe 200 pounds wrapped
yeah,
max.
yeah.
So they're smaller, or one of the oldest breeds of cow. And I've tasted her beef, and I only buy direct from farmers who are out grazing and all that. And honestly, like I can't eat beef here anymore because the taste is so radically different from what I had there.
Yeah, so there's a lot. This first of all, cattle are ruminants, right? They are meant to take grass, leaves, and turn it into a digestible material for the bacteria, and this is where they get their sustenance. What they eat matters a lot. This I'm gonna throw you for a little bit of a loop here. The magnetic environment in which they live matters a lot too, and so the all again it goes back to all of these processes that happen. So the I'll just say this, and if it needs explanation later, we'll do. You are going to have deuterium heavy animals up there, and same for here
Mm.
because magnetism is going to be lower. You're going to essentially have a lattice lock of the food system, and so even within grass fed, so there's going to be a sliding scale there too. So if they are eating corn, they're going to be really high. If they're contaminated with glyphosate, and then we have so glyphosate's also antibacterial, and bacteria are extremely
Yeah.
important in this deuterium regulation cycle too. You're not going to be able to flush it. What's the water like? Now, I mean, y'all should have better water if they're drinking like real water versus, the municipality's water. That's going to have an effect. So like there's so many different staggers that go into this. And that's what makes the entire framework very difficult, is because it looks very much like a lattice, right? This is a lattice work of cascades. And so you can take one lattice off, or one of the little strips, and you can still hold it together, right? But then at certain points, like a Jenga tower, it comes collapsing down because it's what's holding it together. And if you don't have all the different things, so for me, it's light, water, magnetism, resonance, temperature, and time. All of these factors are rungs of the lattice, and then they have a huge amount that comes under the umbrella of what those 6 pillars even mean, and then how they affect biology and what those receivers are. So my point is, yeah, you could have a problem. Absolutely, with the beef in Canada. Same for Arkansas. We're not any better, any different. We may actually even be worse. I can still eat it, and we work with people that are doing, the agriculture the right way. Uh, but there's also going to be a fat content that is worth considering too. And fat's going to be your lowest deuterium of the macros. They're not fat down there at all, right? And so that is a different.
There's more fat though than the grass-fed beef I get here.
Well, that's interesting. There's because you also have a shorter growing season. So like I don't even understand why y'all wouldn't have fatty beef at all.
Yeah, no, not very fatty, especially when you get it from like the grass-fed or there's a permaculture farmer near me.
It's probably a
No,
timing thing.
it's
They're probably
quite
killing
lean.
them super early. They're processing at a very young
Oh,
age.
really?
Yeah, that is
Mm.
probably what it is because like even the grass fed stuff, it's just a timing thing. And so uh, in Canada, you're just going to have a shorter growing season and probably higher inputs for like hay or whatever else they're feeding. And those cost money. So you want to try to have that balance of maximizing where can we have the biggest margin versus time. And timing stretches that out. And they're they're just young. I would put money on it.
Mm. Okay, that's interesting. So bringing it back to the sun and El Salvador and all that stuff, I've heard you talk about, healing vacations in El Salvador, and it looks like you have some plans about that. What's your vision?
I want to well first I want to introduce people to Dr. Cruz. Like first and foremost, like I revere, I love him. I think Chantel is just a beautiful human too. So like I know that he's not everybody's cup of tea, but like his work is meaningful for everybody. He is the clinician that is laying things out in a I think a genuine way. Love it or hate how he delivers it, that's on everybody. But I want to expose people to that message. That's first and foremost, and how deep they want to go. If they want to be a quantum practitioner or whatever they want to do, go join Dr. Cruz's group, become a member, go stay with them. Right, go spend a month down there at one of their things, learn. But for others, like I just want to get people there, just experience, get off the plane. The way you feel within a couple hours is mind blowing. And then kind of the reverse too is like once you get home, you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is what I felt like, right? And so like take people down there on health vacations to where we utilize the locals. I don't want to buy a place. I don't want to build a retreat. I want to utilize the infrastructure that helps build out a middle class in El Salvador. Let them experience it from the beach to the mountains, and just take people to feel better on varying degrees, and then just do. I'm going to retire there, right? And hopefully I'm retiring much sooner than later, but I'm going to be down there. So like I want to see it stronger in every way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm moving there this year. That's
Good for you.
that's the plan. So,
Good for you.
Canada's not, I'm sure you've heard Dr. Cruz talk about it. We're not going to get into that, but Canada's its own form of disaster. Um, so I wanted to talk about something that you said about, and it totally slipped my mind. Oh, yes, Dr. Cruz. So introducing people to Dr. Cruz and the information that he's providing. And I think that it's important for people to respect that no matter how much time we can spend studying his sources, he'll always have a 20, 30, 40-year run on us, right? Like, I feel like I appreciate what you do in your channel because I don't think there's enough people sharing what Dr. Cruz's work is without taking down the work that he's doing at the same time and giving it less credibility because they've made it their own.
Yeah.
You can't beat the master.
No, you can't. And
Always be the master.
yeah, and what happens is the message gets bastardized because you don't understand the principles, right? And so, like, I think anybody that tries to take his stuff and repackage it, they don't even know what they don't know. And it goes back to what I was saying. It's like if you don't have the discernment and first principles, you don't know what's accurate and what's not, right? And so, for me, one of my greatest I am just so fortunate. I just have friends. So Dr. Petra Davlar is one of my best friends in the entire world. She's a naturopathic oncologist. She's the one that we did the sit down with Mel Gibson. She is phenomenal, love her. But she introduced me to Dr. Barry Ninham, and Barry is a 90-year-old Australian physicist that I think is absolutely brilliant. And to be able to converse with him, regularly, almost daily, is been amazing. Barry is so important for humanity, honestly, because he's laying out the basis of physics in the way that I believe is accurate. And every other pillar of physics that we have is incomplete or wrong. And so I will get uh, a lot of odd looks and not necessarily attacks, but where I think Pollock is very wrong. I don't think easy water is a thing. I think it is a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding of Barry Ninham's physics. Okay, so when we need to look at uh, colloidal chemistry is kind of what gives you the introduction into here, but it all goes back to ions, dissolved gas, the bubbles, it's interficial physics, it's Hofmeister series, it's Lipschitz, it's van der Waals. There's a lot of things that are happening on this aqueous medium at a very fundamental level that I am not trying to say that I'm well versed in Dr. Cruz or Dr. Ninham's works to the degree that they are, right? Same thing. Because he's 90. He's been in 70 something years of published literature, right? Like I'll never catch up with Barry. But what it has done is allows me to see more fundamentally what Dr. Cruz is saying. And
Mm.
when you have what I believe is the appropriate physics as a foundation, to the best that I can as an uneducated Arkansas guy, and then you couple that with the clinician that is Dr. Cruz, things make sense, and there you can also see where things may be off base. But that's I don't want a guru and to be a mindless follower. I want to understand it so I can understand it and I can discern. It's like I homeschool my kids, and what I tell them every day is I am not teaching you what to learn. I'm teaching you how to learn. I want you to be able to decide on how it works based off of real fundamental principles. And so I don't have I'm not pretending to have all the answers, but it has made uh, in a lot of ways me appreciate Dr. Cruz more.
I actually have to look into him because I haven't heard of him and I haven't read any of his work. And I know I've read Pollock's book and I definitely found a lot of valuable information in there. And I know Dr. Cruz has been saying for an eternity, he likes to call it cohesive domains
Yeah.
of water versus easy. And I think that there's definitely truth in the organization of negative and positively charged, in the water. Um, but I haven't heard that. I'd have to hear it to actually read it and research it to see what you're talking about because I don't know.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's the biggest reason that I've taken a pretty substantial break from podcasting is I I really only want to talk to people that are going to help me understand it and get the message out more. And so when you realize that uh, we're not talking about the right things for the most part in any sort of a health circle, where that's allopathic, functional, integrative, dietary, blah blah blah. They're all missing the appropriate physics, like without a doubt. The biophysicists are missing the appropriate physics. And when you say something that sounds as egregious as that statement, uh, I get any sort of pushback, but it's the truth, because you cannot understand mitochondrial function without the appropriate physics. Like we don't even understand the lipids, like outer inner mitochondrial membrane. We don't understand crista and the geometry, the non-Euclidean geometry that actually drives physics, or the membranes, right? Like, and this is why the whole astaxanthin thing was a huge blow up, and why I got extremely angry over it, because I do understand more of the membrane physics than the people that have the white coats and the little framed diploma on what's going on and why it is a big deal. And so, like, any time that we're having somebody that doesn't have the results with cancer that we hope for, and we have pushback from and idiots. Like it doesn't matter if they have a white coat. If they don't understand what they're talking about, they don't understand what they're talking about. And it's a big deal. So my point of that other tangent is that there is there, Robert Frost, two road diverge in a yellow wood, right? I took the one less traveled by. We have everybody on the wrong path, and we have to help guide down. The first layer is the right physics, and then everything else makes sense.
Hmm. I have to look him up for sure. Definitely have to look him up. Um, there was so, it's funny that you say that, and I agree. And initially, when I started my podcast, I was like, "Oh, I'll have a guest every week," and now I don't, just because it's hard to pick people, and mine is a little different where I focus on the mind, how the mind works. I want to understand what drives people to make these decisions in their life, whether they're faced with death, a diagnosis, birth. Why are they driven to seek an authoritative figure as the answer? And why is it difficult for people to jump off the cliff, like, Dr. Cruz
Yeah.
says? Or why is it difficult for someone who's diagnosed with cancer to be like, I live beside a power line. I live in an apartment 40 floors up. I live in Canada or northern USA. I got to get out of here. Like, if you've got one cancer diagnosis, multiple active cancer diagnosis, I don't know, like, I don't get that. The moment I heard the first podcast with Dr. Cruz, like, I had endometriosis, insomnia, melasma, my legs twitched at night like crazy, all these things, and I would have done anything to get rid of them. So I don't get it, and I I had a horse for 19 years, and when he died, it was just me and him and a friend, and we just sat there and let it happen. We didn't call vet. We didn't ask for an outside authority if it really was death.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I wasn't gonna fool myself.
Yeah.
And so I don't really get why people think the way they think, and that's one of the key drivers of my podcast. Because if we can get someone to think differently, then they make different choices in life. And then all of this stuff becomes easier for them to wrap their heads around.
Yeah, but I think Dr. Cruz has laid out a lot of that, right? Like in it, and this is not new science
Oh,
either.
yeah.
It's MK Ultra. It's we have been systematically made to where we don't have discernment and we seek authority first. It's the education system, it's the medical system, it's the financial system, all coming together, and we have these little, rectangular gods that we worship. Phones, computers, TVs, and we do not have a connection with nature anymore. And so, we can go into all the different levels, right? The chemistry, the physics, the dopaminergic responses, the lowering of hormone response, like all the things that you were experiencing with endometriosis and the cascading, that all of that is a disconnect of the environment. Like, and so instead of looking for the real solution of that problem, we look to the authorities that uh, confuse it even more. Like, well, this is, you need birth control, right? We need to screw your hormones up even more because you've screwed it up with the light that's coming into your eyes and touches your skin, right? And it's just, it really is psychotic, and it's infuriating. And so, like, it is, in my opinion, not something that we overcome. That people have to either hit the wall and they bounce or they break. And if you bounce and you get to reevaluate and you apply the things, you think better, you become better at whatever you're doing, showing up for your family, however you want to articulate that. But it is a system, it's the environment we're in. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting to see, why does one person not believe what they're told in school, and the other person, I mean, I was homeschooled, from grade 3 to grade 8, so I'm
Yeah.
sure that played a role. My
Huge role.
mom was anti-tech.
Yeah.
Lots of things going for me in that regard. But even, my eldest daughter, like, she has a hard time not listening to authority, and every day I take extensive effort to help shape her brain differently. But yeah, it's a tough one.
Parenting in the modern world is not for the faint of heart, especially once you realize what's going on. It's,
Aw.
ignorance is really bliss, I guess, because it is, it's the number one thing that keeps me up. But understanding the influences that they're exposed to, understanding the implications of health, being in the wrong environment versus not having the full control to get them in the right environment. Like there's a lot of things. And so like when you understand this, granted it makes you seem like a wackadoodle, but it's no, it's hard.
Yeah, I really would love to see more families that are raising their kids like us in El Salvador, like even locals, just a community of children. Like, I don't know what it's like in Arkansas, but in in my neighborhood, everybody is old and living alone. There's
Yeah.
no kids. I go to the park, there's no kids. I took my kids to the park on a weekend and there was two families, one with a crazy child that was like throwing sticks at people and ripping trees and the mom was like, "What's going on? Why are you upset?" And and I walked up because my daughter was trying to play with her, and I said, "I'm sorry, Elena, but we don't play with children that behave this way."
Yeah.
I don't know, was she on phone withdrawal? But it's just out of control, out of control.
Yeah. No, it's no, my kids, they're with me at the market most of the time. I mean, that's other kids in and out. We have thousands of people that come through here, so it's always just. Uh, no, I'm really fortunate for what we're able to do with the kids. So I don't have too many complaints on that, but still ready to be in El Salvador.
Yeah. Any final topics or things that you want to touch on?
um, Man, I think that if we can just continue to get good questions, right? And this is the thing, like if you follow me on, Facebook's probably my primary engagement way other than YouTube, but like ask questions and do it in a way that you're not attacking, right? Like, so I'm going to be very responsive and just like, hey, can you explain why this or what you meant there? It's like absolutely, right? But like, you're an idiot. My grandma had cancer and she was in the sun, got burnt as a kid, right? Like that's what that so like just ask the questions, but let's just be uh considerate. And I don't always deal with it well, right? Like I can be vicious, but uh, it's the intent is good. It's just like there's some people that I have given up on, and others that I want to help, and so
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many factors that people don't consider, like, my mother-in-law was like, "Oh, well, what about my grandmother?" And I was like, "They had electricity, didn't they?"
yeah, they had
She's
probably
like, "They didn't
a
have Wi-Fi or phones."
yeah. Well, and then the other one that gets me is like we're gonna pretend like SV40 didn't exist.
That too.
Right? Like this
Yeah,
is a massive, massive topic, and I'm pretty relentless on that. And so, yeah, it goes back to what we're saying kind of at the beginning of like you can live in paradise and just completely omit it. They had cancer in Egypt, right? It's typically in
yeah,
the nobility where they stayed inside and ate nonstop and didn't participate in natural sight, right? You can be in a good environment and still have modality or issues, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly, like, you have to look at all of the little details, not just what appears obvious to you.
Right.
Mm. Well, awesome having this conversation with you. Thank you.
I enjoyed it.